The Earth is everyone's home, and we're passionate about protecting our amazing planet, our environment, our home. And there's nothing more important than protecting our planet against the devastating effects of climate change. Everyone's water supply is at risk when these disruptions cause instability and conflicts across the U.S. and the world. I saw this firsthand when I was serving with the Marine Infantry in Fallujah and a roadside bomb hit my Humvee. We managed to catch the farmer who was paid to kill Americans because his crops had failed. A farmer turned terrorist because of climate change. It's making the world a more dangerous place. The United Nations has identified 37 conflicts in the last 50 years caused by disputes over water rights. U.S. intelligence agencies report that water is a major source of instability and potential conflict. 40 out of 50 U.S. states expect water shortages in the next 10 years. At the same time, Saudi Arabia is buying up U.S. water rights. After my deployment, I was elected to the Maine state legislature, and I started working on climate security issues with my colleagues.
You know, in many ways, Maine is all about water. Our entire coastline is very important to us, and what happens in the ocean is very important for Maine. But also onshore, the groundwater in Maine and the rivers are resources and have great value for recreation and, as we know, for commercial purposes. Well, this whole cycle is dependent on having a climate with some predictability.
We are already seeing the impacts of climate change here in Maine. The weather is becoming more volatile. We have droughts. We're also having floods. This is a huge problem for our state because we're a big agricultural state, and it's creating instability.
Although the region as a whole in Maine is projected to be sort of warmer and wetter on the whole, last summer was very, very dry, and you know, the hydrologists were very worried. And a lot of farmers lost many crops because of it. Just across the road here, my friend Ian lost many crops, and I would say, you know, roughly half of his revenue for the year.
We are in a precarious situation where there's no turning back, and we need to address these issues now.
In 2008, I introduced a simple bill to the Maine legislature. All it would do is have the state of Maine collect a single penny every time groundwater is withdrawn from Maine and used for bottled water and sold in bottles. 1 cent per gallon. And that was the bill. Little did I realize that Poland Spring would have to fight that extremely aggressively.
Dirty energy is contributing to climate change, which in turn is creating water security issues. We can address the issue of water security by reducing our dependence on fossil fuels.
There's a group starting up to oppose offshore wind. And I think it's really two things that are driving them. You know, for the local people who are involved in those organizations, it is the concern around what is next door to them, you know, and what that will do to their property values or their view. Somehow there's just tons of money that's flowing into these organizations. I mean, they're hiring lobbyists, you know, they're a constant presence in Augusta, they're putting out ads on social media and elsewhere. And you know, you got to wonder where that money's coming from. You know, is that really coming from these you know, these folks in plaid who come before my committee? No, I don't think so. That's coming from, you know, big coal and big oil.
The amazing reality is we have solutions that combat climate change that can be implemented now. It's time to take action.
The Advanced Composite Center of Maine has developed offshore wind technology that could not only power Maine, it could power the nation and even the world.
Offshore wind is one of the largest resources, renewable energy resources that exist anywhere in the world. We've developed a technology where we float turbines over the water to harness the very strong winds. And that's what's unique about it. This hull here can be made locally using concrete, and we can create thousands of jobs here, only in the state of Maine, building these hulls. But also we can create food with the hull by growing mussels on this unit. We estimate in terms of food we can create $1 to $2 million a year worth of mussels. We can also create about $10 million a year worth of electricity for each hull. Think about putting 80 of these hulls out there and all of a sudden you can see the numbers.
I'm sponsoring a bill that would allow the average Mainer to put solar on their own roof, and would do so by giving them a $2,000 rebate for the investment that they make, which benefits all of us, and it would also keep net metering so that the energy that they produce, they would be able to use.
We already know we're in for changes because of historic greenhouse gas emissions. We have to do everything we can to try and stabilize that and make sure that we protect the climate as much as we can. Water is one of the major reasons.
How is water insecurity affecting your state? Let us know how at codebluewater.org.